When the George Dannatt Trust was set up in 1986, the trust deed said that one of the aims was to educate the public in the visual arts. I feel that the gift that's been made here and to Southampton City Art Gallery, some to Dorset County Museum and other museums around the southwest actually fulfills those aims.
George, of course, was an abstract artist, and so what we have is an artist and music critic's view of painting, together with, of course, with his wife, Anne.
I think their collecting activity started very shortly after George himself began to practice as an artist. And as far as I know, apart from works which they already possessed, they started actively looking in the dealers' collections and visiting international shows around about 1959 or 1960. After that date, they collected works either from London dealers or from the artists themselves, or from studio visits and so forth, right up until George's death in the 1990s.
They were really very active as collectors. It wasn't that they casually accumulated these things. They were buying things and then on occasion taking them back a year later, a few months later to the same gallery, exchanging them for something else. They were living with works that they brought into the house and then deciding that they would maybe get a better work by the same artist. They would swap it for something different. So it was really like a full-time job in a way.
The main strength is artists associated with the Cornish seaside colony of St Ives. That includes 5 or 6 works by Terry Frost, who was a great friend of George Dannatt's, and perhaps one of the most interesting is Black and White Motion, which shows the rocking of the boats in the harbour at St Ives. Behind me is one of my favourites, actually quite a small work, but it's by the artist William Scott, a drawing of a cup with collage attached to it. Other groups of works include etchings by Ben Nicholson, perhaps the most famous of the St Ives artists, and prints and sculptures by many other figures associated with the group.
George's relationship as an artist and as a collector with St Ives is an interesting one, because he and Anne didn't actually visit the county seriously in that capacity until the early 1960s, where he met Patrick Heron, Dennis Mitchell, other artists in the St Ives community, Brian Winter, Peter Lanyon and others. It's quite a curious fact that the one artist, the main artist who he really became close to and who he followed very closely and collected a great deal is John Wells. John Wells is not a St Ives artist. His studio was, for the most part, in Newlyn on the south coast of Cornwall, and it's with his particular sensibility that George himself identified. In fact, if you look at the progress of George's own painting from its very early beginnings in about 1960 right through until the end of his life, he follows the ups and downs and the toings and froings of John Wells probably more than any other single individual.
George and Anne also collected artworks by some of the artists we might call neo-romantic. So, for example, Paul Nash in the early 20th century, Keith Vaughan and John Craxton, not associated with St Ives, but actually a more poetic response to the English landscape.
You know, music, literature, and the visual arts were absolutely their lifeblood, and they existed for that and through that. It was a life absolutely of the arts and of an aesthetic existence, an examined aesthetic existence.
The connections within the collection, the Dannatt collection, are about friendship the friendships he had with artists such as Terry Frost and John Wells, Patrick Heron, and many others. And so you have a very intimate collection, and a lot of the works are very domestic in scale, and so suit the 18th century house we have here at the gallery.
Attenti so sham, a blaze in my eye.